Okay, so how many of us are in a relationship right now? Okay. How many of us are in a long distance relationship? No. Okay. So I'm here today to show you that being in a long distance relationship isn't always bad. Many fear of wasting time in a long distance relationship mainly because they won't physically be with the other person or simply because they'll lose hope. They might also assume that not a lot of people do long distance relationships, and if they do, they don't last. But let me share with you some statistics. Statisticbrain.com shows that as of May 2016, 14 million couples claim they are in a long distance relationship. Of that population, 75% are engaged right now. That goes to show that many are in a long distance relationship and the majority last. A lot of people negatively stereotype long distance relationships, but studies show that long distance relationships are higher quality and more stable, even for those that are in college. A little over 30% of long distance relationships are college students, including myself. So let me talk to you about my relationship. So last semester, I was on Snapchat, and I was on my cousin's story, and I saw this girl on it. So I messaged my cousin, and I said, to hook me up with her. And she says, well, that's funny because she thought you were cute too. So I'm like, okay, that's perfect. It might turn out good. So I gave her Twitter information, and I in her DMs. So we started talking. Turns out she lives in Oceanside, 2 hours away from here. So, I'm thinking that's not bad at all. It's a drive back and forth, it's not bad. But finds out she's leaving to boot camp soon for the Air Force. So at that, I wasn't sure about it. I just wanted to make it a friendly relationship. But we continued to talk, and eventually we started to catch feelings for each other. So as the time for her getting ready to leave came soon, we decided that if we can make it through her boot camp and her tech school, we would make it official. So while she was in boot camp, we didn't wait. Like 2 weeks in, we decided to make it official anyways. She's in the military. You can get stationed around the world, different countries and stuff. My family actually lives in Las Vegas right now, and we're both fortunate that she got stationed over there. So, I get to go back during the summer or whenever I want to and go visit her. So, and we've been together now for like 6 months, and so long distance relationships take a lot of patience. I was afraid at first because of the time that both of us would be apart, but I realized that it was all worth the wait. A long distance relationship is also nothing without trust. Once you find someone you genuinely trust, it'll be a lot easier for you. So in conclusion, if you find someone attractive, slide in their DMs, get to know them, and build a relationship regardless of the distance. Thank you.
All right, Jason.
Oh, well, at the beginning, I feel like you were kind of struggling a little bit because there was almost no preview besides the questionnaire of the audience, and you were kind of reading off the note cards a lot, like to start off with, so it was kind of bumpy start. Once you started with your personal story, I feel like you just like completely changed, like you would eye contact with the audience, like their voice was just projecting better, and it just got so much better. I feel like maybe if you kind of preview with your personal story, that could have made a stronger introduction. But once it got to that point, it got a lot better. You know, you're making eye contact. You were like projecting your voice better, like I said, and I didn't really see the structure of the speech. I feel like it was a little bit all over the place, but I feel like the conclusion was really good. Like you had a really good exit line, and overall, I think it was a pretty good speech.
All right. No, I'm going to agree with a lot of the things that you said. I think when you're talking to us and telling your personal story, you're a lot more engaged, and it's easier to relate to what you're talking about. You seem more involved in what you're discussing. Maybe that would have been a good idea to start with that. The presupposition that people have a negative view of long-distance relationships, I think, needs to be developed a little bit more. You did have a couple of interesting statistical pieces of information talking about long-distance relationships and how many of them there are and how they end up ultimately successful. I am assuming that you make it official. That means something, I'm jumping to conclusions. Are you engaged?
No.
Okay. Then I'm not exactly sure, if that means that, I don't know. Don't tell me. I don't want to know. It could be something completely different. But you definitely identify as each other's significant other at this point. And there are different ways that people acknowledge that. In my interpersonal classes, it's been a while since I've taught them, but there's usually some step that people make when you identify what phase of the relationship is. You have a kind of a commitment phase that you are into, and there are public acknowledgments that you are, for example, a couple. And I'm assuming that that's kind of the thing that would be perceived by others. The experience of in being in a relationship with somebody who's in the military, for instance, I think that's one of those things that there's probably some data on. I know my niece is married to a guy who's in the Navy, and they have long periods of separation. They had that before they got married. They've had it since they got married, and sometimes it's a little bit of a struggle, but they seem to be happy and having some success in regard to those sorts of things. And I know that there are a lot of people who run into that because their significant other gets deployed, and it becomes a little bit problematic. So there's got to be some research on this that you can get into the speech and fatten it up a little bit. As it is, it's not a long presentation. There's room to put additional content in it. I think the presentation issues, we've already mentioned, I think you were strongest when you're talking about yourself. You do have a tendency to kind of rock back and forth on your feet, sort of swaying, and I think that's where whatever nervous energy you have comes out, and it's better channeled into the other parts of your delivery. All right, thank you.